everybody, it's Saria here from Restoring Love. It's really great to connect with you all. I am thrilled to come to you and share with you about brain spotting. If you've got any questions at all, just pop them in the comments and I'll be able to answer you. So for those of us who have complex PTSD, trauma, anxiety, depression, we might have gone to typical talk therapy and not had results, and then felt like we are too broken, there's something wrong with us, nothing will shift. And we think it's us rather than the fact that it's not the right therapy for us. And brain spotting isn't for everybody, but I have certainly found it's helpful to me. I just want to take you a little bit back to, I don't know how many years ago, 14 years when I had complex PTSD. And I was too scared to share with doctors just how awful I was feeling and experiencing myself, because I was worried. I was having, I was psychotic. I was seeing hallucinations. I was suicidal. My son was being bullied. I was not coping. And I had flashbacks, and I would just blank out in freeze and numb states and not be able to function. And normal talk therapy just could not work with that to resolve it in any way, because there were just like ripples of emotions flying through my body that when I spoke to people about it, and it was a cognitive analysis of what was going on, it didn't help at all. And seeing therapists, a lot of the trauma that I had was to do with my mum from physical abuse in childhood. And when she and I went to therapists, the therapist said, we're not going to look at anything. Let's just ignore all that happened in the past and just be nice to each other. And I was just completely mind blown by the lack of awareness of trauma that therapists had. And I just didn't feel safe to be there. It took me a long time to find therapy that worked for me. Initially, I did EMDR, and it was really helpful, except that it took a very long time to get into the therapy, because they have a lot of protocols that you have to have developed before then. And when I did EMDR, for the first time in my life, I got migraines. I'd never had migraines before, and I still get them, but I'd never had them before that. And so in that sense, it was not right for me. And I now realize why. Being autistic, ADHD, I have strong sensory stimulation issues. I get overwhelmed by senses and sounds. Sound is a sense, but eye movement, and so flashing and sounds are really, really overstimulating for me. And so that would create a migraine for me. Where brain spotting came out of EMDR by a brain spotting therapist, who then noticed that actually when a client was talking about an issue, the person who created brain spotting was David Grand. He just found that their eyes automatically went to a point that when they were talking about the trauma. And when I trained in brain spotting, my kids just laughed at me saying, Mom, you've spent thousands, but this is the same work you've done with us all our lives. I've always helped my kids to work through things. And I would say, pick a place to look that you can name as that issue that you're talking about, and then pick another place, and we would work through the different things. And weirdly, that's a lot of what brain spotting does. So it was funny to train in something, spend thousands on something, but I was already automatically doing it. But it also helps to explain to other people what it is, how it works, and how it can help you. So it can help anybody with who's got PTSD, complex PTSD, anxiety, depression, mood disorders, if you've had a trauma or an assault, an accident, if you've got performance anxiety and you are struggling to achieve your goals because there's some unconscious block, but you don't understand what it is, or OCD, Brainspotting is really, really helpful because it helps to go into the unconscious. And what it does is help to locate what the issue is inside of your body, then focus on it, process it, and release the experiences and symptoms that you might not even be aware of as an image or a memory, things that are outside of your conscious mind that haven't been processed inside of you and are coming out in your life as mental health struggles, or that might look like sabotage to you. And it might have impacted, it might be something that was pre-verbal, so you don't have the language for it, or it might have been something that you got frozen in that moment and you blanked out, so you have no recollection of it. Brainspotting really helps to process the things that you can't name, you can't remember, but you know that something is impacting you and you would like to process it, so you have more capacity to be present, to connect to people. It really identifies, then processes and releases the sources of emotional or body pain or trauma and dissociation. So if you're finding yourself going off in freeze, or you're finding yourself contorting in pains, then it really helps to tune into those parts and be able to work through and give you insight into the origin of what is there, and supports you to resource yourself so that you can work through that. It's based on the profound attunement of the therapist with the client. I've just done a Brainspotting session before this, and the client, for the majority of the session, was processing and not speaking. And I was just completely attuned to their bodies, to their energy, to their emotions, to their thoughts, to their whole experience, and following and noticing what is she experiencing and supporting her to be with that. For those of us who have been brought up in neglect and in abuse, we often didn't have that presence to guide us through and allow our natural healing capacity to process what's there, because we might be told, it's fine, it's nothing, just get up, it's not a problem, sticks and stones will break your bones. So we haven't had that deep holding of presence of, I'm right here with you. I'm right here. And that presence allows you to go deeper into yourself, so that you can meet yourself with deep love and care and really, really connect with yourself. And in that presence, you then feel safer to be able to notice what's happening in your somatic awakening. For instance, in the session before, I just noticed the person's lip moving. And I was able to draw attention to the lip, and the lip took us deep into memories that hadn't been explored. That really, when the client came to the session, they were depressed, lonely, jealous, hurting, and they left the session, just in one session, going from that to being nourished, feeling a sense of wonder and awe for the world. Complete contrast just in 50 minutes, and they processed it without me sharing very much at all. It was just my love, presence, care, and being able to know how to support and navigate through the subtle energies that are arising to take somebody deeper into meeting themselves and weaving love with the parts of them that haven't been met before. that attunement of the therapist, I remember when I was training, I did 2 or 3 of my trainings with Mark Gritsky. And at one point they picked me, not surprisingly, to be the person to work with who had complex trauma. Because I had just had a delicious array of trauma in my life. And to see the level of presence that he held, it just made me quite excited in this therapy, in Brainspotting, to be able to offer that to other people, to hold them energetically through whatever is they're experiencing. And what happens is it helps to integrate the trauma that is triggering the amygdala. And it helps to calm and regulate the amygdala and create a homeostasis inside of you. I remember when I taught parenting classes, and I used to say to the parents that, if you're just saying to the kid, I love you, but the kid is angry and upset, they can't feel or let in any of that love. And that's the same with you. Often, when a coach just goes, just love yourself, when you're filled with trauma, anger, hurt, resentment, jealousy, sadness, bitterness, there's no room for love. We first need to process these feelings so that, like with this client earlier, it can evaporate. That's what it feels like. I can just see in the client's body, it lifts from this heaviness to the sense of wonder and nourishment. And it's as the limbic system, it works in the limbic system to calm everything as the body processes the trauma. So the nervous system is calmed and you're more able to think clearly because the nervous system is not clouding. When you're hypervigilant, you get more critical, paranoid, upset, self-loathing. And as you calm the nervous system and get safer, you're able to see yourself and the world with more love. So that is what Brainspotting is. I have used it with clients who've had all sorts of upsets, from assaults, accidents, different types of abuse, neglect. I have done it on myself and my kids, with bullying. I have worked with folk who've been suicidal. There's one person who I've worked with who was suicidal, completely blocked, went from thinking that they were not worth anything and they'd be better off dead, to turning around and creating from nothing incredible work about vulnerability. And when I asked them about the session afterwards, they said they no longer look at their past and feel they didn't deserve to be loved. It is such a powerful, I'm just going to look at my notes to see that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, it's such a powerful way of being able to connect to your body, because a lot of talk therapy that happens helps you to understand possible dynamics. Like if I look at the years that I had talk therapy, I added up that over the years I've had 10 therapists. If I look at the process of talk therapy, I learned a lot about the dynamics. I learned how to analyze. So any therapist I went through to, they would often say, wow, you're so aware. But I was fucked up inside. I didn't understand, I could understand all the dynamics and patterns because of all the analysis and, therapists I'd seen who would help me to see the dynamics that were happening, but I didn't process them in my body. I didn't work through them. And because of that, I was playing out a lot of the patterns in my life. So I was replaying, getting involved, creating relationships with people who were abandoning me or who were critical of me. And it took me doing a lot of brain spotting on myself and with therapists to unhook from attachments that were toxic towards me so that I could really create relationships that are and friendships that are nourishing, mutual, and reciprocal, because growing up, I didn't feel I was worthy. And so in my whole being, while I had done a lot of analysis, I was still following the patterns of being a deep people pleaser, not putting in boundaries. And as I came home to my body and learned to be in my body with the presence of a therapist who was deeply connected, loving, and supported, I could learn what the signals of my body that were saying, no, this isn't healthy for me. No, don't go there. No, this isn't safe. So that I could learn what is right for me. And on the other side of that, I do attachment therapy. And I trained in attachment therapy when my kid's dad left for South Africa. And I didn't think they would see him again. And I felt that that would lead to such deep abandonment issues. So I trained in attachment therapy based on Dan Hughes' therapy for kids who've had trauma called didactic developmental therapy. But those are two big words for me, so I just call it attachment therapy. And it's all about learning the skills to secure attachment, about empathy and holding space for emotions and processing your emotions and validating your emotions so that you don't act out what had happened to you on other people. So for those of you who are wanting support, whether you've got PTSD, anxiety, depression, you've had any level of trauma or neglect in childhood, Brainspotting is mixed with attachment therapy is just such a beautiful combination that enables you to process the trauma and then give you the skills to be able to learn and grow what you didn't have in childhood. I know for myself, there was nobody teaching me how to emotionally regulate. There was nobody around helping me to calm and see things clearly when I was hurt or bullied or abused. I was just expected to be silent. The person who bullied me was the daughter of one of my mom's best friends. And so I was just expected to get on with her, even though it was torturous. Instead of validating me and letting me know that I deserved to be treated well, I was just expected to pretend it wasn't happening so that they felt comfortable without concerns for my comfort. And the struggle of not having that emotional regulation is that it can lead to addiction, going for the wrong relationships that create more of that emotional deregulation. It can lead to self-harm. I became suicidal. I developed PTSD, like the extremes of emotional deregulation. And the more that I research emotional regulation, I see that these other things are not the issue. Suicide, addiction, self-harm, complex PTSD, those are not the issue. The issue is nobody ever taught you how to emotionally regulate. And so now as an adult, when there are way more stresses, plus the memories in your body of all that has happened, you don't actually know how to regulate. And that's not your fault that you weren't taught that. And Brainspotting, in helping you to be in your body and with safety and support from a therapist to become more present to yourself, enables you to grow capacity to hold space for your own emotions instead of running away from them, repeating the cycle of what had happened, getting anxious and worried about them that makes them so much bigger into panic attacks, as well as taking them out on other people because you don't know how to be with them, process them, and then share what you need in a healthy way that gets your needs met so you and the other person are honored. It's not your fault that you didn't get any of that. Though Brainspotting and attachment therapy can really help to be able to support you in that emotional regulation. I know for myself, I look back and there are so many different times that I noticed that I was getting into addictive patterns. It took somebody saying, do you notice that you drank 16 cups of coffee? Because they followed me and counted because I was not aware. Then somebody else noticed how many chocolates I ate a day. And when I saw that, I realized I obviously have an addictive personality, so I'm not going to have any alcohol or drugs because that's clearly, if I'm just doing that with sugar and coffee, it's going to be way worse. So I don't drink, I don't take drugs, because I realized that I had some addiction issues. Now I realize it wasn't an addiction issue, it was a regulation issue. And when you have issues with regulation, you also have issues with impulse control. So when there's some sort of emotional undercurrent, you're not able to process what is arising. So you eat or drink or take drugs or eat sugar, whatever it might be. And Brainspotting really helps you to come home to yourself. Does anybody have any questions about it? If you would like to work with me in doing Brainspotting, you're welcome to put restoring.love/help, and you can see I do 50-minute sessions and 2-hour sessions. 50-minute sessions are great for being able to process a single issue, so that we can go really deeply through one issue. And if you're somebody who prefers a deep, long session, you can do 2-hour sessions. And the 2-hour sessions really help if you're somebody, especially if you've got ADHD and you want to go off in different directions and focus on different things, then the 2-hour sessions are great, because it gives you an opportunity to be able to just flow with what is there without any time constraints. So, and some people start to work with me and say, I want to do a Brainspotting on something, or they say, I want to do attachment therapy, and I'm happy to do either. So, Michael, Brainspotting is a therapy that was born out of EMDR. And how it works is that when you're talking about an issue that you have, the therapist will guide you to tune into your body, of what you're feeling in your body. And I will often say, put something on it. So whatever is around, it might be a pen, putting wherever you can feel whatever is there. And then with the therapist's help, we locate a spot in front of you. Sometimes it will be with, I have a pointer here, and sometimes I'll use a pointer, but often clients prefer to just look in front of them and find a spot in front of them that resonates with this feeling that they're having. So, for example, if you had a memory of neglect in childhood, and you are just focusing on that one point, we would feel where in your body the trauma or the pain felt. And then I would get you to close your eyes, feel into that part of you that is feeling that neglect. And then I would support you to find a point, just looking very slowly from one side to the other, to find the point that when you look at that point, you're like, oh my goodness, that really connects with this feeling that I'm feeling. You can do that right now on this call. So it's sometimes hard, because some people might watch this and go, well, I didn't connect in this call, so it doesn't work. Without me being able to see you and support you, it's quite hard. Some people do it automatically, and it's easy because they have been taught more present skills in themselves. But you can just do it now, of saying, if I did Brainspotting for something that's disturbing me or making me worried or anxious, or that I'm unhappy about, feel in your body where you feel that. And take a breath into it and put your hand on it. And then close your eyes and really feel for a moment that feeling. And I want you to just be gentle with yourself. And then look around the room, just slowly from one side to the other, where you feel your energy is connecting to a point. You can look and see if there are any other points, but go to the point that you feel, and then you'll feel a charge. What your eyes are doing are connecting to the parts in your brain and your body where that trauma is stored. And then it helps to process that trauma, so that you're more able to think clearly, because that trauma is processed effectively, and no longer clouding the way that you see the world. And then what we would do in the brain spotting session is allow you to just be present to the feelings, the images, the sensations, the experiences that arise in looking at that point. And then as they arise, I use attachment therapy to weave love into these parts of you. Some people do that automatically, and if they are not doing that automatically, sometimes I weave in, because the majority of the folk that I work with have had trauma. And so I tend to be very loving, empathetic, and supportive to be able to help you to resource yourself and to weave love into these parts of you. And then we check in and see how, through the session, how have things shifted? And if things have not shifted, then I have different tools to be able to help you to process the emotions that are, generally it will go from an 8 down to a 2 of intensity. So you might come to a call 8 out of 10 distressed, and by the end it might be a 2, and then I will work with you to get it down to a 0 using different tools, different brain spotting tools. So Michael, does that help you understand what it is more clearly? And, that example was just a gaze spotting type of brain spotting, but there are many other types of brain spotting, whether it's for creativity or whether it's for people who are peak performers and they are blocked, their brain spotting techniques for that, and for advanced brain spotting, where we integrate different parts. So you might come to a session where you are struggling to make a decision, and we do a brain spotting using 2 different parts to integrate these parts and see what your soul is drawn to in each of these parts, and then work to integrate them so you can make a decision that's aligned with your values, your vision, and your purpose, so that you're not wrestling between 2 parts of you, but you're able to integrate them and love all that you are. So I hope that helps everybody. Let me know if there are any other questions, and reach out to me if you are wanting a session. If you go to restoring.love/help, you'll be able to see, I've got a form there that you can fill in and share what's going on for you, and I'll be able to reply, and you can see more about the 50-minute and 2-hour sessions there. All right, lovely people, I'm sending you love, and I look forward to working with you and making a difference in your heart so that you can thrive and create the life that you love without trauma clouding who you are and impacting your relationships and your purpose. I really want you to be able to create a life that gets you excited in the morning. All right, I'm sending you all love, and reach out if you'd like support. Okay, bye.